I want to find the biggest and the worst sprawl in the South. The sprawl brawlers of the South will be its three largest metro areas: Houston, Dallas-Fort Worth, and Atlanta. Okay, basic info first. According to 2023 population estimates, out of the three, Dallas is the largest metro area, but it's also the most dense. Atlanta and Houston are both quite similar, with Houston being a little larger. For each city, I'll find the furthest suburbs from the city center, I'll add up all the distances to the furthest suburbs in each cardinal direction, and also find the shortest distance from the center to the nearest rural area. Let's start with Houston. After staring at the map for quite a while, these are images of two what I think are pretty representative suburban developments. From a point in the CBD and looking west, I find continuous development and the windy roads indicative of tract housing to about 35 miles. Similarly to the east, suburbs reach about 34 miles. To the south, 23 miles, and a whopping 45 miles to the north. A note on my very subjective methodology where I basically have to eyeball Google Earth. I characterize the development north of Willis as exurban in nature and not suburban. Sure, we can find the odd housing development for another 10 miles to the north, but they're surrounded by farms, forests, and who knows what else. Also, I chose not to include Galveston, even though technically it's in Houston's metro area. It's a historic city in its own right, and it didn't feel quite right to include it, especially considering the tenuous development northwest of Texas City. Okay, but where's the least amount of sprawl around Houston? In 15 miles to the northeast, you reach an area that appears rural with some exurban development mixed in. Next is Dallas, and from looking at the map, the far-flung suburbs look denser to me, almost like a Midwestern city. Again, starting from the CBD, we see suburban development stretching 42 miles to the west, 27 miles south, 23 miles east, and 35 miles north. And the shortest distance to a rural area is just 12 miles to the southeast, where warehouses and a freight depot give way to farmland. Finally, we have Atlanta. At least its suburbs are more wooded. However, many housing developments would almost be sparse enough to be exurban, but are still surrounded by big box stores and strip malls. As usual, we'll measure from the center of Atlanta's CBD. So whether or not Atlanta wins this competition, it just looks like the sprawliest. I was going to stop measuring at Cumming or maybe Coal Mountain, but then I saw this shopping center surrounded by neighborhoods out another 10 miles, which puts us 45 miles north of the center. Development stretches 35 miles to the west, about 30 to the south, and 30 to the east. And the shortest route to a rural area, 17 miles to the southwest. Okay, Dallas clearly sprawls the least, based on its metro area's density per square mile, both the suburban distance metrics I used, and its relatively short path to a rural area. Houston and Atlanta are just about tied. Houston's metro area is just a slightly larger version of Atlanta's, at least according to these metrics. So, we need a tiebreaker. At 8 a.m. on a weekday morning, what's the commute like to travel the max suburban distance for each city? For Houston, it's up to an hour and a half, but look just how closely the route follows the straight line distance. For Dallas, it's up to an hour 40, but in Atlanta, it could be over 2 hours. So Atlanta's the top sprawling city of the South, earning it a bowl of spaghetti. Now that we have a sprawl champion of the South, in the next video, I want to find out which of these three cities has the worst sprawl to live in.